get my 6. Hey guys, we're starting today down on the very front of my property by the road. So forgive any traffic noise that might show up, but we are going to be making our way up there. Where is it? This way, up in the, you can't even see it from here. Our campground's way back there. But we're going to start because I'm going to show you a project I've started this morning. Now that it's pretty much feels like fall, the majority of the summer heat's gone, the humidity's gone, I'm able to get out here and do more things safely and comfortably during the day. I'm going to show you what I'm working on, and I'm going to tell you why this absolutely is necessary to be done, okay? Let me flip the phone. All right, so what you're looking at here is a Virginia burning bush. I put 23 of them in here almost 4 years ago. This year, they were really finally starting to take off, but the deer got to them. I never put tree guards around these because the deer never really bothered them. I've got tree guards around all my other trees I've planted. I'll show you some of those too. I planted everything you see. Here's one of our followers slowing down to gawk as they go by the house. So anyway, I spent about 2 hours weeding these things by hand this morning because I am now, as you can see, going to go back and put tree guards around them so that the bucks don't destroy them in the rut. And so just going to leave guards around them so that next spring when they leaf out and start growing real big, they'll continue to grow real big. They were doing great, and then the deer just decimated them all in one night. So you can see the weeds all over the ground I pulled up. Show you how some of the trees are doing. Here's a red bud. None of these trees were even 3 feet high when we planted them. This red bud is now probably 8 feet tall. This cherry really took off this year. This is wild black cherry. It's probably 11 or 12 feet tall. Here's the original. I thought it died. Planted it about 4 years ago. Thought it died, so I cut it off. But then next year, this thing sprung up the following year. And I said, well, let's let it go, see how it does. Now it's like 12 feet tall. Here's a poplar that's about 10 feet tall. Oh, our cedars in the front row that were no taller than 3 feet when we planted them. Some of them are about 15 feet tall now. We've got, it's all mixed hardwoods. Here's, what is this? Mulberry tree, redbuds, maples. We put some privets throughout, like here's a privet hedge. These grow really, really thick. Invasive species, they call it, from India, but they're actually beautiful. Autumn olive, found this growing in the field just last year. It's about 2 feet tall. It's done really well. And guys, there's a point to this. I'm going to get to it. We are going to go look for him, her, it, or they. Just showing off. Look at this privet. This is a privet that was this tall when we planted it. That's about 2.5 feet. It's about 8, 9 feet now. They're doing great. But here's a project I'm working on. I'm coming through and I'm doing this by hand. I'm taking these weeds out just to get rid of the weeds, beautify the place. It rained so much this summer, I just couldn't stay on top of it, and they're beyond being able to be taken down with the weed whacker now. I'm gonna do it by hand just like I did here, as you can see. And then here's some sourwoods that came up naturally in line with the burning bushes, so we left them there. Now, we're gonna walk and talk. I'm going to flip the phone back around so you can get my 6. I got my work cut out for me. It's going to take me weeks to do it. But I'm going to tell you why it's absolutely necessary. And it's not because of the deer. As you see here, most of this stuff that's already doing well, like this maple. Now these maples, they're about 5 feet tall. These things were only about 1 foot tall when we planted them, because this was the last row we planted. And we were digging up our trees back there along the wood line and bringing them all down here. We didn't buy any tree. Well, we bought the Leland cypresses down there. They were 18 inches tall. They're now about 5 to 6 feet tall in only a year. And we bought these Virginia burning bushes from an online nursery. But everything else we dug up and replanted. Now, let's head up there. Okay, so get my 6. Watch for faces in the trees and in the woods and the tree line. We're getting ready to walk by the graveyards, well, the cemetery. There's a small cemetery here, all overgrown. And like I said in other videos, I'd keep it clean, but it's actually across the property line. This other guy's property. But the people buried there died in my house. So this all used to be one property a long time ago. Now, am I weeding all that stuff out? Why is that absolutely necessary? Okay, here's the graves. Watch, I'm going to show you. I've talked before about how you come through here and just, here's an example. You'll just find like balls. Look how old that thing is. Looks like a rugby ball, kind of. This is not from us. This is not ours. I used to just take them. Because if they were on my property, it was like, oh, here's a ball. And then days later, there'd just be another one there. So, graves are back there. Here's why it's absolutely necessary that I get out here and spend hours a day weeding, pulling weeds by hand around my trees. And I'm going to do all these too. Here's two rows of trees we planted. We planted, gosh, thousands of trees since we've been here. It's absolutely necessary that I do this because I absolutely enjoy doing it. I love it. I love the exercise I get out of it. I love the result of having a yard that looks like a resort when I'm finished. It clears my mind at times. Other times, like this happened today. Up here, I haven't started typing it yet, but in my mind, I wrote the entire next short story for Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4, which I've already completed a considerable portion of, and I believe we might have it out within the next month or so. So Volume 4 is coming. That's where I create when I'm out here doing this stuff. So it's necessary for that as well. And this isn't a video about jading. I'm not justifying why I do what I do, arguing my position, defending my position, or explaining myself. What I'm trying to do here is help motivate somebody who might be watching who isn't getting out there and doing the things they enjoy doing because of the way other people judge them, the way other people tell them, you know, what you're doing there isn't really necessary. Why are you doing that? And I'm going to give you some examples. And here's the whole reason I was even thinking about this and why this is the video for today. As, of course, we're looking for him, her, it, or they in the background and listening too. We get up in the woods. This might end up being a long video because I've been hearing, I took a nap already because I got up at 6 and was out here as soon as the sun was up doing this stuff. And I love it. I love it. I've missed it. But I was tired. I was cream crackered, as our friends in England would say. So I took a nap for about an hour. So I was on the front porch drinking coffee after I woke up, and I was hearing distinctive tree knocks from up here in the forest where we're heading. So, but here's the deal. This morning we had an electrician come out and do some work for us. You know, I'm going to give a shout out here. I've made some videos about some unscrupulous businesses that I wouldn't do business with again. I'm going to give a shout out to a business that we use exclusively now for our electrical work, plumbing. They pretty much do it all. Fitch Services in Charlottesville. These guys are great. Any tech they've ever sent out, we've always gotten along real well with. Their prices are very reasonable, and they're pretty quick about getting out when you need them. And we've had some times when we were having some problems with our well for the longest time because some jackleg thought he knew how to fix it, said he'd save me money by doing it, so he did it, and then it just kept breaking, cost us several thousands of dollars more in repairs. We finally had to have all the work he did done correctly by Fitch, and but when the well would just stop working, they were out within a matter of hours. And one time it was in the middle of winter, really cold, and they came out. So I highly recommend them if you're in this area. So he's out here, and we're talking about life out in the country because he lives out in the country on the opposite side of the county. And he just out of the blue said, you know, he says, I like how there's not a whole lot of people out here, but the ones that are kind of weird. And I was like, yeah, you've noticed that? So, and it got me thinking about, and of course, you know the story about the annoying neighbor that we ran off with the crayon, who just 2 weeks ago was over there in his field. I'll make sure he's not over there now. He's not there now, but over there with binoculars watching me split wood. I mean, so I guess that's an example of what the guy was talking about. But there was another individual. 5 months out of the year, you can see 5 different houses here, okay? So there was this dude who Yeah, Dearly and I bust our butts on this property. Not so much now. Right now we're just kind of in a maintenance mode because we set up the gardens. We put in the fences. We've, got a couple years worth of firewood stocked up. We've created our campground up here. So now we're just kind of at the maintenance level. But things are getting creepy. Back when we just started, we'd be out and these are just some examples. And you'll get where I'm going with this. And this isn't to be ragging on some individual that I guess is within sight of where we are. It's not about that at all. It's about doing what you enjoy doing simply because you enjoy doing it. And that makes it necessary to do, because if that's where you get your enjoyment, your pleasure. Okay, I'm gonna start doing some wood shots now. So, just examples. Dearly and I would be all day working in the garden, tilling it up, sowing the seeds. Dude would just come over uninvited. I don't understand why so many people just don't get this concept. Your friends are your friends, your neighbors are your neighbors. The two, it's not a good idea to mix them. We don't. Hi and bye, we're cool with that. And if you have an emergency and somebody's dying at your place, you need help, by all means come and get me. But just because you see me in the yard doesn't mean I'm out there for you to come over, act like you care about how I'm doing for a couple of minutes, and then start pushing your political views off on me and all this and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I mean, I used to live in a subdivision, and I got that a lot there. And so when I came back to the U.S., I said, I'm never going to live in a subdivision again. My old neighbors were wonderful. They were good people. But when I was out in my yard, sometimes it was just to be out there, sitting there, getting some fresh air. But it was never about listening to these people talk about how important they are down at their jobs and who they support in the next upcoming election. I don't care. So anyway, this guy would come over and he'd say, wow, you guys spent all day in the garden. You guys did a lot of work out here. I got tired just watching. And we'd be like, yeah. And we were expecting, well, it looks nice or whatever. But then would come, that's really not necessary. Food is so cheap. You can buy vegetables at the grocery store for next to nothing. It was like the first time seemed weird, because who does that? Well, this guy did. But he'd only do it about every 2 months. Another couple months would go by. Maybe I had a project going on, putting in some of the fencing around some of the garden areas and stuff. I'd be out there, and I didn't really know what I was doing so much at first. This was, a lot of it was new to me. I actually was putting in T-posts with a shovel. It was hard way to do it, dumb way to do it. But of course, I was driving down the road sometime after that and saw a guy pounding in T-posts with a T-post pounder. And I thought, So I went to, I think, Tractor Supply, and I bought myself a T-post pounder. And now I knock a T-post in the ground in 10 seconds flat, just like everybody else. So the guy watches me putting in these posts all day, and he comes over and he's like, there's a machine that'll do that for you. It's real simple. You just push a button. It's like hydraulic. It just puts it in the ground like that. And he said, if you'd go rent that machine, I'd help you do this. And I was like, well, if I rented that machine, why would I need your help? It didn't make any sense. He had no intentions of helping. He wanted to point out how I was doing it the dumbest possible way. And so whatever. So these are some examples, and they went on. So many examples I could use, but that's not the point. But the last time the guy came by, and it's been more than a year, praise God. It's been 13 months. It was about my mowing. He was always talking about how unnecessary my mowing was too. Because, I mow a lot. Look at that. Is it necessary? For any purposes of practicality, the answer is no. But it is absolutely necessary that I do it because I enjoy doing it. I love the view of the end result. And again, you don't know how many stories I've written in my mind, or how many times I would have writer's block and be stuck on the next scene in an existing work, and it would just come to me while I was mowing grass. The next to the last story in October Nights, 31 Tales for the Halloween season, which, by the way, as you know, is available on Amazon in print and Kindle. Links in the description box below. Next to last story, it's a story called The Spider Lady. That story came to me when I was up here mowing the campground. It just, sometimes I'll see something. I saw a brown recluse, and that ignited an entire 3,500, 4,000 word short story. So, and plus, again, I enjoy it. And again, not to jade, I'm just telling you, I know there's somebody watching this video who has a hobby, who has an interest, who has something they like doing that they're hesitant to do because somebody out there in their life, whether it's somebody that they've invited into their life or it's somebody who just has the ability to visually observe them, comes around and tells them that it's not necessary. Why do you do that? Why do you waste your time? Do it. Do it, okay? So the last time this guy comes around, it's about mowing, telling me, it's really not necessary to mow up here. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't this campground beautiful? And we use it. And we have friends, actual friends that we actually invite here kind of regularly, maybe twice a month throughout the summer and the fall. And they love it, man. We'll sit up here, me and the guys, and these guys are veterans, combat veterans, and we just talk about stuff we just don't feel comfortable talking about with other people. And we love it. So anyway, so this had been going on for a few years, and the guy had gotten more and more passive aggressive. He knew about the YouTube thing because, like everybody else, YouTube was recommending our videos to him. That's kind of how he found out about it. He's like, "Oh my God, I had no clue that you guys were like a viral YouTuber." Like, well, yeah. So then, of course, what came from that was he watched a couple of our videos and then would come over laughing about how stupid our viewers were, how stupid the people who watched our videos were. He'd read the comments where they'd talk about how, at 9 minutes and 56 seconds in the video, I saw a peaker coming out from, he'd talk about how stupid these people were. And pretty much the implication was the only reason that we're successful is because you guys are stupid. I took great offense to that. Not because, nothing about my intelligence or anything like that, but, I always thank people for buying my books. I want to thank all of you who watch my videos as well, because you are who allows us to live the life we want to live. And you have value to me. And, so I said to the guy, you ever just think maybe they're entertained? You ever think maybe there is something there? And of course he's laughing. And so the last time he comes over, he's busting my chops about the grass and other passive aggressive things he'd done. Like he'd say to me, you remind me of this one guy I know. He married a beautiful young girl from a third world country. I think she was from Egypt. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, man, he had so many problems with her. She was a basket case. He had to send her back. I'm like, okay, so are you suggesting I should keep my eyes open for some sort of problems? Oh, no. Pure passive aggressiveness, right? So the last time he's over here telling me this doesn't need to be mowed, that doesn't need to be mowed. And he says, you grew up in West Virginia, didn't you? Because I did. And I said, yeah. And he goes, you probably think Chuck Yeager's a hero, don't you? And I was like, well, yeah, we all do. Everybody around the world does. He's the first person to break the sound barrier, in flight. And he goes, yeah, I met him. And I was like, is that right? He goes, yeah. He goes, you know what? It doesn't matter what Chuck Yeager's done or what he's accomplished. He's nothing but a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. And of course, the implication was that I'm just a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. Because he was asking about how the channel was doing, how the writing was. I was telling him it's doing great. We're still viral. We don't get nearly as many views as we were this time last year, but those of you who watch our videos watch like forever. If I make a 26-minute long video, you guys watch all 26 minutes of it. So we don't need the views that we used to have to get. And I'm glad we're not getting them, because when we were making those videos that YouTube kept featuring and they were going mega viral, that was bringing in all the vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges, like this guy I'm describing, except he was like a living in the flesh troll rather than just an internet troll. And I'm sure I banned at least a dozen fake profiles from this guy on here. I'm sure he's trolled me so many times. So anyway, and trust me, there's a point to this. I just kind of, for 3 years, I'd been polite because he does kind of live out this way, and I just don't want any problems with anybody. But I figured, this is enough. And I was like, you know what? Chuck Yeager, 100 years from now, will be remembered because he accomplished something. No one's going to remember you because you've done nothing. And he's like, well, I want to, because part of the story I left out is the guy was always coming up with all these excuses as to why he's never been successful. He's never succeeded. He's never achieved anything. He's got people who take care of him, so he doesn't even have to. I know he doesn't work. But he would always say, you know, I wish I had your energy. I might get outside and do, you know, some of the stuff you do. I just don't know where you get your energy from. I wish I had it. And I tell him, if you wanted it, you could have it. I said, you don't have any energy because you don't do anything. If all you do is sit around, never exercise, never go outside and do any yard work. And I, you know, I told him when we first got this place, I'd been in the Philippines for 5 or 6 years where I didn't go outside and do anything because the circumstances there were different and I couldn't. Here, I remember the first time I raked leaves. I raked leaves for about 8 or 10 minutes and had to stop because I just didn't have the physical strength in my forearms and in my wrists to do it. And my forearms were so sore for the next couple of days. Dearly had to rub my forearms, like massage them. It was like that with everything. And I'm going through it again now with splitting wood. I've just started splitting wood again now that the heat from the summer's gone. And I can only do it for 20 or 30 minutes. Yesterday I did it for about 30 minutes. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. Later today, after I make this video, I'm going to do it for 30 minutes again. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do it for 30 minutes again. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll be able to come out here and split and stack firewood for an hour. And by Thanksgiving, I could split and stack firewood all day long if I wanted to. That's just reality. And so the guy didn't like hearing this. And I said, dude, look, I'm not trying to be mean, but all you've ever done is come over and tell, you know, you see us doing all this work. You tell us how it's so not necessary. What it boils down to, and here's the point. The guy, the electrician that I was talking to today, because he was sharing, cause he lives out in the country, opposite side of the county. He was talking about some lunatics that live out close to him. And it was, the stories were so similar. He had the same thing. Anytime him and his wife would do anything on their property, they would be told by some folks, I think, that moved in here from California about why it was all wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I said, what is it with these people? He said, dude, it's simple. He goes, they're lazy. Hear that tree knock? He said, when they see all that work you do, it highlights all the work they don't do. We got some activity. They're listening. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but how like unstable must they be to where they let it drive them nuts to the point to where they actually approach you and try to come across as friendly? You know, it's just passive aggressiveness is what it is. There's nothing friendly about these people. They rope you in and then they start slicing and dicing with their silver tongues and all these passive aggressive insults, comparing you to, you know, the guy who married the Egyptian lady, comparing you to Chuck Yeager, or, you know, the implication being if Chuck Yeager is just a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia, it doesn't matter what he's done. And it doesn't matter what you've done either, Crazy Lake, because you're just a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. And I was like, why did they do? And this is amazing because this young man was like 25 years old. He was very emotionally intelligent for such a young person. And he said, well, he says, because they're just negative people and they're miserable. And I said, yeah, I guess you're right. And he says, misery loves company. And I said, that is right. But here was the aha I had. Another reason I'm making this video. And I'm telling you, it's not to diss on somebody who lives out this way. It's to motivate somebody watching this who's not doing what they enjoy doing for the same reasons I'm describing here. I want you to get out there and start doing it. Yes, misery does love company. There's the pumpkin we gifted the other day. It's still there. And these tree knocks we just heard were coming from right back behind it. But here's the thing about that expression, misery loves company. You hear that and you assume, well, okay, yeah, this person's miserable, so they're going to seek out somebody else who's miserable and have company with them. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. There are plenty of miserable people out there in the world who hate their lives. They don't seek each other out for company because they might actually enjoy spending time with somebody who's like them and they might not be miserable anymore. Miserable people actively seek out people who are not miserable. I'd go a step farther and say they actively seek out people who are happy, who are content, who are achievers, who are active, who do things, because it just makes them angry, because that's not them. There's probably some jealousy in there. And the thing is, they know they could have all that as well, but it takes effort. It takes work. You want YouTube recommending your videos to people all over the world, and somebody comes up to you and says, wow, I had no clue you were a YouTuber, but I saw you on. You got to do the work to get there. And sometimes it takes years before your channel's even monetized. But you can't just make a couple dozen videos and say, well, this didn't work, and stop. What do you expect? You know, if you want your yard to look like a resort, when the limbs fall off the trees, you got to get out there and pick them up and get them out of the way. You got to cut the grass. You want to have vegetables that I don't care if they're cheap in the store, and they might taste the same, especially if you buy organic in the store. But the feeling of accomplishment that comes with eating that ear of corn that you grew from a kernel. You know, you got out there in March and you cleared the old weeds from last year. You waited till April, you tilled up the ground, you soaked the kernel in water in a paper towel in the house for a couple days. Once it sprouted, you put it in. Screams. So we've had tree knocks, we've had screams. I think what that scream meant was, amen, brother, preach it, preach it. That corn that you grew from a kernel, and that you spent the summer months getting out there with your 200 feet long water hose, watering on those, you know, in the evenings after it's been 95 degrees and it hasn't rained in 3 weeks, and you're out there doing this stuff. It makes it taste so much better. But the only way to experience that is by doing it. And these things don't make everybody happy. Some people aren't into yard work. Some people aren't into gardening. And if that's not your thing, great, don't do it. But if, you know, Dearly's getting into this painting by number thing, these oil paintings. And yeah, we'll go to the thrift store and we'll see some beautiful oil paintings on sale for 99 cents that somebody else did and donated to the thrift store. And I bought some of those. But Dearly is finding joy in doing this and having that sense of accomplishment when she's done. If you love oil painting and somebody in your life, whether they've been invited into your life or not, is telling you you're wasting your time, that's not really necessary, doesn't need to be done. Okay, first of all, you don't have to jade either. But sometimes, I mean, what worked for me, I stood up to the dude and he hasn't been back in 13 months. I pretty much said, look, in a polite way, you don't do anything. And so I think he thought he had me snowed for a few years. He actually thought that I thought it was true. I just somehow naturally had more energy than him. No. When you don't do anything, you're not going to have any energy. If you want to paint by numbers, you paint by numbers. And if somebody... Ask that person, here, I'll put it to you this way. The next time anybody, you got to be bold to do it, but it works. Someone's coming at you, they're being all passive aggressive and stuff and saying those things to you. Just say, I'm curious. What is it about me and my hobby, the thing that I enjoy so much, and me doing this, what is it about that that makes you so uncomfortable about you? Because that's the truth of it. My man who was here today fixing my electrical work, he nailed it. I mean, they're lazy people. The work they see you do highlights the work they don't do. So if your thing is crocheting, I know a lot of folks get into crocheting. A lot of people like wood carving. Somebody has that one thing they really enjoy doing. And the next time somebody says to you, you know, that's not really necessary. Spend a lot of time doing that. Just simply say, what is it about me doing the things I enjoy doing that makes you feel uncomfortable about you, you'll shut them down. Shut them down. So something very similar along those lines. Of course, I didn't ask. I told him because I knew. And after 3 years, and so now, look at this. All right, so I've prattled on here long enough, so I'm gonna let it go at that. Also, you know what else part of this big video, what the making of this video was? I was sitting on the porch having my coffee. I heard the knocks over here, which we heard in the video, and we got some screams today too. I said, you know, it feels like fall out here. I just want to take a big loop, take a walk around this upper loop of my homestead and just look at its sheer absolute beauty. And I have that sense of accomplishment knowing that I have maintained it as such. And I wanted to do that. So it was absolutely necessary for me to do this. And I'm glad you were here to do it with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. See y'all for more next time. From the PBS S. He's saying goodbye to, or she, or it, or they, the potential Bigfoot, Sasquatch show.